minimize this, and I'm going to go into present mode. And you're going to help me find it on here. Trying to... Hi, everybody. It's Dana Stengel, and we are getting started. So, bear with me while I'm trying out something new today. Okay, perfect. This is happening. All right, I think I'm good. If I,
Yeah, just text me if you need anything.
yeah, and can you maybe log on and just make sure you can hear me okay and everything?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This is so weird. So I am using a new platform tonight to do this presentation, and it is super cool because I'm sharing my screen. I think the last time I wanted to do this, I wasn't able to because I couldn't figure out the technology, but my son is helping me, and I want to thank you for joining us without very much notice because we skipped a week. This was supposed to be last week, if you remember. I got a migraine and I wasn't doing it, so we weren't here. So that's my story. But we're making up for it. We went ahead and just skipped a week and moved forward. So here we are, and we've got Coyotes, Bobcats, and Foxes for you tonight. And this presentation was created for the people at the Placerita Nature Center. So I am going to dedicate this evening's presentation to you guys, and Ranger Frank, thinking about you today. So, Coyotes, Bobcats, and Foxes, right? These guys all live in so many people's local areas, right? And especially here in Southern California. And depending on where you are, you might see all three of them. Or maybe you're just seeing coyotes, or maybe you're just seeing coyotes and bobcats, or maybe you get to see all three. But I'm here to tell you, foxes are making a comeback. So there you go with that. All right, I'm gonna click through. So thank you for joining us again. Thank you for your commitment to learning about native wildlife. It makes me very excited to do this. All right, so where do these guys fit in sort of size-wise, right? I think this is a fun slide. On the top, you've got a picture of a regular dog, right? And then next to that, you've got a fox. He's smaller. Then you've got your bobcat and your coyote. They are of relative size, right? Like, they're similar, these guys, in size. And you would be looking at other things like their ears and their faces and the way they walk, not just their size, to get an idea of which one of these characters is in your yard today. And then down here, we've got a hyena, just for kicks. And then what they're calling a Bluffton mystery beast, also known as a chupacabra, also known as coyote with mange. So unfortunately, that bottom picture is coyote with mange, and it's super sad, and it often is a result of animals eating things that have rodenticide in them, like other animals that have been poisoned. So that's where mange comes from, and that's what it looks like. And it's a skin disease, and basically eyes get crusty and animals can't hunt anymore. And so these are animals that you're more likely to see in the backyard just because they're having a harder time hunting and they're looking for easier meals. All right, here's some better pictures. There you've got a bobcat in the upper left here. He's licking his chops. He must have had a delicious meal. And then you've got your foxy fox over here, and he's more of a red fox. And then down below on the bottom left, you've got a coyote. This one is in captivity, it looks like. And then down here in the bottom right, you've got this super adorable, super cute relative of the gray fox, and he is the island fox, and he lives in the Channel Islands off of the California coast. So he is very special, and he actually was on the brink of extinction. There were, these guys were numbering down in the hundreds, even less. Like each island had like less than 50, and they brought them into captivity, and they brought the population back. They also realized what the problem was, and the problem, of course, was that golden eagles had taken the place of the bald eagles on the islands, and golden eagles prefer mammals, whereas bald eagles prefer fish. So anyway, they have a super great story, and hopefully you will be able to get on a trip to one of the islands to see these super amazing little island foxes. They're smaller than the gray fox, and they are not shy. They're like a bunch of feral cats all over those islands, and so that's kind of cool. What else? Okay, so this is an interesting picture, and this is one that you're probably not going to see this very often. Somebody told me the story of it, and I believe this was a bobcat guarding a den, and that would be the reason for the body language that you see here. Now, given the fact that these guys, are in a similar niche and they are a similar size, this is not always going to be the outcome. If Coyote was guarding a den, the body language would be exactly opposite, right? And if no den was involved at all, these two probably wouldn't even be this close to each other, because they can smell, they know where somebody else has been, they know where they are, and they because they overlap territories, they try not to run into one another. So, weird, crazy picture, but I think an interesting one too. All right. Now, here's a little bit about coyotes, and I don't know why I have Canis latrans there, but we're talking about coyotes, and we're talking about wolves and foxes and jackals and dogs, right? But we're not talking about all of them. Today we're just talking about coyotes and foxes. And I just have this whole picture here because it shows you a bigger picture of how these canids fit together in the bigger group, in the bigger familial group, right? So you can tell fox is much smaller. Everything about him is smaller, except his tail. His tail is rather fierce for such a little animal. And then coyote is a little bit bigger. And then jackal actually fills a similar niche on a different continent. He's similar to coyote in so many ways. And then wolf, totally different as well. They're canids, but wolf, super shy, doesn't want to be where people are. Keystone species. We used to have them in California, but we extirpated them in the 20s, sadly. But we do have plenty of coyotes because we have a lack of wolves, and because leash laws are in effect and dogs are contained, so coyotes are around. And also, we're taking away a lot of habitat with all of our development, but you already know that. And then fox is also super different. Fox, in my mind, and this is not my scientific explanation, but they are sort of cat dog. They have a lot of characteristics that are actually very feline, even though they are a canine. So that they're really cool, and they have these neat back legs that do weird things so that they can climb up and down trees. And we're going to talk more about that later. But super cool. So this is the bigger family. That's kind of what it looks like. All right. Why is this all about coyotes? Well, I think we're starting with coyote is what's happening here. And I think we're going to go to the others. So this is a big question that comes up, and we're not going to focus solely on coyotes tonight because we talk so much about that in general. I want to focus on the other animals at least as much, but it is so important to know that seeing the coyote is not a chance event. It's not a rare occurrence, and having a coyote in the neighborhood is not. It shouldn't be a scary thing. They live in our neighborhoods with us and alongside of us. They're eating rodents, they're eating trash, they're getting rid of debris. They're just great in so many ways, but we have to know how to be careful with our pets because they are at least as successful in the urban landscape as they are out in the rural or in the wild landscape. So that's important to know. I think a lot of people feel like, oh, what a chance occurrence that was. I can't believe I saw a coyote today. Or it's the quarantine, so I'm spending more time looking at wildlife, and so that must be why I saw a coyote today. But the reality is you should assume that you could see a coyote at any point in time because you can, because they are in every area of Los Angeles that I'm personally aware of. They could be anywhere, and they are everywhere because they're super successful. All right. Okay, that is the range of the coyote, and the most important thing to know about the historical range of the coyote is that he has followed humans. And a lot of people wonder, well, why? And that's because rats and rodents follow humans. So that's their favorite food, but they are omnivores and they can eat a variety of things, and they are happy to eat people's garbage as well. Coyote pups, this is, how cute are they? The bottom is a den. That's what it looks like if you find one. And then on the bottom left there is a coyote. So up top you've got a picture of two coyotes. Pretty standard, right? If mom's having babies in the spring, she's probably going to have two. Unless someone messed with the pack maybe they trapped one, maybe one got mange and died, maybe both happened, we don't know. But this creates a situation that biologically within the animals that are left, and the mom coyote can have up to 12 to 14 babies next time. So this is one of the reasons why a lot of people are suggesting that people haze them rather than remove them lethally, because they don't want these outbursts of, pups everywhere in the spring, because that is definitely a result. Okay, what's on the menu if you're a coyote? There is sandwiches, right, that you get from the trash at the park. Maybe snakes if you could get one. That's a gopher snake right there. Of course, rats and mice and, other reptiles. But the number one thing, according to the National Park Service's last study, the number one thing that coyotes in the LA area like to eat is rabbits. So those wascally wabbits don't have a chance here in LA Coyote Land. So that's what they're subsisting on. But like I said, they are omnivores and they can eat your peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and they will love it. And this is what coyote sign looks like. It's not one of my favorite presentations unless I'm showing you pictures of scat and prints. So these are pretty typical examples of a coyote print and coyote scat. And usually one of the ways you can tell it's coyote scat rather than dog scat is you'll see bits and pieces in it, right? Your dog is usually eating kibble or some other sort of uniform, homogenized food, right? Mostly. I know there are some of you out there that that's not the case for, but in general. So coyote is going to have seeds and animal bits and fur, and that is going to be very telling. And this is coyote because the ends are not super skinny and tapered, and it is not as segmented as a cat's poop would be. So there you go for that. And now on that print, I just want you to notice that it is sort of an oval shape that you can see the claw marks on it, right? You can see those because canines cannot retract their claws. And so if it's a canine print, you will usually see the claw marks on there. Depending on the substrate, if it's a feline print, sometimes you do see a little bit of a claw outline too, but in general, that's more of a canine thing. So, and then if this were to be a dog print, what I want you to notice is all those claws are facing forward, pretty much. If it were a dog print, it would be more splayed. And usually I'm doing a hand gesture at the same time, but there's some lag going on my YouTube stream right now. So I'm just excited to be able to share my screen with you. Okay, who's next? What's in a howl? Let's go to talk about that howl really quick. Ooh, I've got one for you. Are you ready? Oh, yeah. I knew you would like that. So what's up with that? And when you hear a whole bunch of that, does that mean that an animal is being murdered right now? That's like one of the number one questions we get. And the answer is no. The answer is that is simply communication. That is, hey, Jeb, where are you? I'm over here, Sally. How's it going? Where's Mom? I'm over here, busy. So that's basically what you're hearing. And, you know, if they're getting their prey, what you will hear is the quick cry of the prey being taken. You're not going to hear a big coyote party. They don't need to share their food. Usually they're hunting solitarily. Sometimes they will hunt with a little bit of a pack. Not always, though. And that what you're hearing is just communication. And they, like wolves, they each have their own voice, and they can recognize each other's voices. So they know who's jumping in. And that's why they're doing it. And sometimes, and there's myths about animals howling more during a full moon. And that might be true because if they can see a little better, they might be up a little later, they might be a little more social. And since that's what it's about, it would seem very likely that they would be more vocal when they're being more social. So that's that story. And this is just briefly, feeding coyotes often leads to what some people would call an attack. So, you know, you might be at Griffith Park, you might feel like they look hungry, or maybe people just leave trash or whatever, but whenever that trash or that food is close to where humans are and coyotes become less and less afraid of humans, they are more likely to bite someone. So someone doing the activity that you see in this picture, you know, he's just having a moment with wildlife. This is beautiful to him. He doesn't realize that he's training wildlife. He's training this coyote to come to where people's hands are to take food. And that is not going to end well for the coyote. So, feeding coyotes will lead to their demise eventually because they are brave, they are curious, they do want to know what's in your hand, and they'll eat it. They're opportunistic, and you know they want to eat dinner. So, and just so you know what's an attack, you know when a coyote goes for maybe your jugular area, or any canine would go for like the neck area, that would be an attack. If an animal winds up biting on your thigh or on your hand, or you know where your hand would land next to your thigh, that's more of a. Of course, it feels like an attack if you're a human being, right? But the intent on the part of the coyote is just getting food, and we sort of demonize that, and now everybody's afraid of coyotes. And the bottom line is their natural instinct is to first be afraid of you. So if we can just reinforce that, we're doing everyone a big favor. Coyotes and dogs, again, you know, coyotes do not interact very well with dogs. It's very important that people protect their dogs and keep their dogs on leash whenever they're hiking or horseback riding or, you know, whatever. And I'm going to go a step further and say, watch your dog while you're walking your dog. I see so many people on their cell phones, like it's their business call and the dog just happens to be on the other end of the leash. But, you know, if he's your family member, it would be lovely just to spend 10, 15 minutes just interacting with him. I know the dog would so love that. But at the very least, keep him on a leash. And I don't recommend the retractable kind because they can break easily. The mechanism in them can break. They're also usually pretty long, and your animal's head can be under a bush that you can't see what's in there. And that's how people find things out the hard way. So you don't want to find things out the hard way. Okay, this is just an infographic from the Humane Society. And this is just describing what I talked to you about before, where if you disrupt the pack, you're going to have more pups. And this is easily found on Google. It's Humane Society infographic coyote. That's how I find it. Now we're going to talk about the bobcat. So this guy is related to the Canadian lynx. And so many people have been like, oh, you know, lynxes are my favorite. They're so cool, you know, but bobcats are, you know, in the hen house stealing my chickens. So, you know, I like lynxes, but I don't like bobcats. And, you know, the reality is that they are cousins. And Canadian lynx is basically a bigger, chubbier, furrier bobcat. They are physiologically the same animal, but adapted to different climates. So the Canadian lynx is obviously better prepared for cold weather and snow, and the bobcat is better prepared for warmer weather. He's got a smaller body, he's got less body fat, and his fur is not quite as thick. And this picture, I think, does such a really good job of showing those differences. And then there's the other two lynxes that I don't know as much about, but you can tell, physiologically speaking, they are very much the same animal. I'm sure there are differences, though. Fun fact, people who wear bobcat fur coats, they only use the belly fur because the rest of it isn't as soft. So it takes them a lot of animals for one of those coats. So that's just a little FYI. Yeah, I like this picture a lot. Okay, is there anything else? So what I want you to notice is that little bobby tail. That is the bobcat's trademark. And a lot of people think that they see mountain lions during the day. And the chances of that are super low. And usually about 90% of the time, the animals that, the big cat that somebody would see during the day would be a bobcat, not a mountain lion. But, you know, they're about the size of they're about 25 pounds, right? And they can look big depending on how far away you are. But the telltale sign is that little tail. It's always twitching too. It's always involuntarily twitching. So that gives the bobcat away right away. And the bobcat and the mountain lion, completely different diets, completely different niches, right? People think that the bobcat is nocturnal, but on the urban landscape, he is also diurnal. So he really is more than anything opportunistic. And that isn't so much the case for bobcats that live in more rural areas. But ours here in the city, they're very opportunistic. Whereas our mountain lions, not so much. They are very, 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 very nocturnal. And if you see one during the day, there's probably a problem. And if there isn't, it's just a super rare occurrence. So if you see a big cat during the day, chances are it's a bobcat. There's a lot of them. This is their general range. And in this range, there are roughly 1 million cats, roughly speaking. These numbers change all the time. So that's the range. All right, and he can also be called the wildcat. He has long legs. He has large paws. He has those tufted ears. Those tufts are like little antennas, right? They let him know about motion before it actually gets to him. They're brownish with a white belly. They have short black tipped tail, and they are generally crepuscular or nocturnal. And crepuscular is just a fancy word for they prefer to come out at dawn and dusk. And in general, most animals do. It doesn't matter if they're considered diurnal or nocturnal. So many more animals are active at dusk and dawn than any other time of day. But like I said, these guys, they do not think that you can let your chickens free roam during the day because that's safe. Because once the bobcat gets the notion that you've got chickens roaming around, he will take advantage of that for sure. It's favorite meal. Okay, and then, to the my, we've got babies. And there isn't much cuter than a bobcat baby. So, gestation is about 2 months. They'll have between 1 and 6 young that are weaned at 2 months. Usually they're not having 6, though. Usually they're having like 2. So, they'll stay with their mom for up to a year. She's teaching them everything. This is where we hunt. This is where we sleep. This is where we hunt when we can't hunt over there. This is where our territory is done. All that kind of stuff. They're mainly solitary except during mating times. They can be 11 to 30 pounds. They live 10 to 12 years in the wild, and the oldest captive bobcat that they know about was 32. So that's pretty old, and that's pretty standard. Whatever the captive age of an animal, you pretty much cut that in half for their years in the wild, because living in the wild is super hard on you, and you don't have vet care and you don't have protection. So, but probably amazing life that is in the wild as opposed to captivity, of course. Okay, and they're on the back. There's his beautiful front of his face with his whiskers, and a couple cool things about cats in general. Those whiskers move when they hunt, and actually they will move like when they're hunting. Those whiskers will come out and sort of face forward and really extend that animal's area of perception. So he can reach out further because of those whiskers. And the tufts of hair on the ears work the same. Also, I don't know if you've ever seen a cat make a stinky face. Like they start smelling something and it smells really good, so they open up their mouth partway, they gape. That is called phlegmon. And that is actually a cat that is using his Jacobson's organ, which I told you about when we talked about reptiles, right? And so cats have that organ as well. And when they make the stinky face, the organ is on the roof of the mouth, and it helps them access that to help them better understand what that smell was. And someone's at my door. Don't you love that sound? So welcome to my world. You get to be part of whoever is at my door. Now I want you to look at the back of the ears. And you've got white spots on the backs of those ears. And I believe I heard that helps babies follow mom through the grass. But I'm not 100% on that. But it is definitely something that you will see on bobcats. So, all right, what is next? Oh, yes. So this little guy, these little wildcats, they pack a lot of, a lot in. And they have got an amazing pounce. And they can jump up to 10 feet and bam, they can get in on that rodent like nobody's business. And that is super cool. Here are some amazing pictures of this little guy with prey that, you just don't know what's next. He's got a rabbit. He's got a snake. He's got, that's another rabbit. And then that one looks like, oh my gosh, I'm not even sure. It looks like a big bird. I'm not even sure what it is. But look, just the picture is really there so you can see the size comparison. He's a little superhero, really an amazing hunter. And here are some more that are super interesting. So they, when it comes to prey and hunting, size, is no challenge for them. I believe in the first picture, this guy wound up eventually taking that little deer down. And in this other picture, I want you to look at that body shape right there, because that looks like a mountain lion, except for the tail. Everything about that says mountain lion to me, except the tail. But the tail gives it away. And he's fishing, because these cats can swim. All right, so what is happening here? They scent mark their territory. This is where I live. Here's some pea mail for you. Squirt, squirt. I'm going to rub my scent glands here, and I'm going to rub some of my scent down, and I'm also going to pick up some of the scent from where I am. And on the tree there with the claws, they will scratch and they will leave scrape marks, and mountain lions will leave even bigger ones. And then here, down here, you get that little squirt squirt with the butt, and that is not a fun smell. And then up on the top, you can tell he's rubbing. You've seen your dogs and cats both do that if you have pets. And then I'm not sure if that video from Urban Carnivores is going to work or not, so I'm not going to mess anything up right now by trying it. But, urbancarnivores.com is another amazing resource to keep learning about these super cool creatures. Oh, Fleming response. We just talked about it. See, I jumped the gun. Look how cute, right? He's like, oh, what is that smell? Who else was here? I love it. So that is an exaggerated example of stinky face. Okay. And then bobcats in Southern California, and what is one of the main differences between them and coyotes? Coyotes are more brave. You're more likely to see one. There are more coyotes here. Coyotes are omnivores. They can eat your trash. These guys, much more shy. Unless you have chickens or unless they have mange, you're very unlikely to see them. But they are around in, pretty sizable numbers depending on where you are. But they, they're very shy, and it's hard to sometimes find them. Although sometimes you're hiking and then just there they are, because they are around. All right. So neither National Park Service nor UCLA biologists have ever documented bobcat attacks on domestic dogs or cats, and in diet analyses, National Park Service biologists have never found evidence that a domestic pet was consumed by a bobcat. So that's what they've got for now. Of course, there's always going to be somebody that's going to, prove the studies wrong, right, at some point in time. But, because of their size and because of what they tend to eat, their prey, we saw they'll go for bigger things, but they just have not documented them going for pets. So good for that for now. But still, they will go for chickens, and it's always important to protect pets in your yard because of a variety of native wildlife. Trapping, we talked about this too. The good news is trapping them for fur is illegal in California. And so I used to have pictures because I felt like it was very important that people understood. But yeah, 16 to 22 bobcats to make a single fur coat. And there's that beautiful belly fur that I was talking about. That's ultra soft. So yay, California. Yay, us. We did something right. Okay, bobcats and chickens. Again, it's their favorite meal. So I recommend a very sturdy chicken coop. And this is an example of one. But there are all kinds of examples of them. And more you can buy chicken coops online that you just have to, like IKEA chicken coops, right? They're not IKEA chicken coops, but they are, you could buy them online and put them together yourself. This one, I like it. It has a roof. Super important because some of your predators could be flying. I also like that it has chain link because I have seen chicken coops made with, guess what? Chicken wire. I don't know where chicken wire came from or who it's supposed to protect from what, but chicken wire is the least protective fencing I've ever seen in my life, and it really shouldn't even be considered fencing. So, and to be honest, this one needs one of two things or both for super safe chickens. Number one, I would take the chain link part of this and I would double that up with hardware cloth from Lowe's. Because what happens is you have an animal like a raccoon or ringtail or even a bobcat, and they've got long arms, and they can reach their arm into the chain link and drag something out, and it's ugly, and they'll do it. So you could do one thing is to line the chain link with the hardware cloth, and another thing is to if you didn't want to do that, you could just put a chain link enclosure about 2 feet out, bigger than the whole thing, so that anybody's arm that goes in cannot reach a chicken that is at the edge of that caging, if that makes sense. So that is my scoop on that. And again, super athletic little wildcat. Look at him flying through the air right there. That is definitely a California cat. And then down on the left, jumping. They're just so good at jumping and running and pouncing and hearing. Their senses are amazing. And like I said before, shockingly, they also swim, and they swim very well, and they can hunt when they're swimming. Cutie. All right, and you knew we were going to go here too. It is Bobcat sign. Now, I want you to notice that this track is more round in shape than oval. That's number one. I also want you to notice that the lobe, which would be the bottom part, is sort of shaped like an M, right? And notice there are no claw marks here. No claw marks on there. So that, and then whenever you send in a picture of a print, it's always good to have something near it for scale. Now this person has the whole ruler, awesome, but you can even do it with a coin or a pen to give you an idea. And based on the size of this, if this was bigger, if this was an inch bigger, I might say mountain lion. But it's nice and small, but not so small that it's a house cat. And so that tells me that it's a bobcat. And then on this scat over here, the two things that I want you to notice are it's very, very segmented and the ends super pointy. So there's your 101 on scat. Yay. All right. And now we get to this super cute, cool little climby guy who's just amazing cat dog. All right. So he's a canine though, so don't get too confused. There he is climbing a tree. He loves to climb trees. There's his range down below. We have gray foxes here in California. That's our native fox. There are introduced red foxes that made it to the West Coast from the East Coast when they were introduced there for the fox hunt. And the island fox that lives on the Channel Islands is a relative of the gray fox, not the red fox. So for our purposes today, a lot of this is just sort of foxes in general, but specifically we're going to be talking about the gray fox. And he, like I said before, is an amazingly agile climber. All kinds of foxes, right, in the world. You've got kit foxes, and you've got Arctic foxes, and you've got desert foxes, and gray foxes and red foxes and island foxes, right? You've got all these foxes. I'm blocking the island fox for you right now. Sorry about that. But he's super cute. And ours is that beautiful one with the green grass. All right. So the gray fox. He's the only canid known to climb trees, and his claws are retractable like a cat. Right? See, I told you. Largest distribution of any canid, and he's a basal canid species, which means branches include other foxes, and he's got super very old ancestors that go back 3.6 million years. He is not a true fox the red fox is a separate genus, and he is related to the Asian raccoon dog. I know. You're like, what? What's an Asian raccoon dog? Oh, wow. That is cool. So the Asian raccoon dog is actually not a raccoon at all. It is a canine, and it has a lot of fur, and they use this fur, unfortunately, for a lot of different things. But that's his little relative. If that isn't the cutest thing you've seen, I don't know what is. Oh, that is a little teeny tiny baby fox. Oh, yes. Okay, so they're called pups, kits, or cubs. Their gestation, 53 days. Litter size between 1 and 7, usually pretty small. And the breeding season will vary geographically, depending on where you are, depends on where this guy's having babies, but generally spring. And they can hunt at 3 months. They'll disperse between 6 to 8 months. That means leave the family unit. And their lifespan is super short, 2 to 4 years. Oh. Here is some fox sign for you. I want you to notice their little teeny tiny footprints and the shape. And it looks like you can see a claw on there, but I don't know if you always can. And then that poop is just beautiful. One of my favorite things about fox poop is they love to display it. So if you ever are hiking and you come across poop that sort of looks like this, because they will, there it is, berries and stuff and fur. If it's on something else, it's going to be fox, because that's what he loves to do. He will poop on other animals' poop. He will poop on a rock. He will poop on a stick. He just loves to display his poop. So when in doubt, if it's displayed, good chance it's fox. So how urban are they, as compared to our other two? In the LA area, they're not as urban as the coyote or the bobcat. However, I think they are making a comeback. And the reason why is because more and more people are talking about either finding sign or seeing them somewhere. So I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be seeing them more in yards or not. But they do very well in England. And there is an interesting documentary called Fox Wars on YouTube about, urban Brits just going crazy because these guys were destroying their gardens and stuff like that. 10,000 red foxes in London. They can run pretty fast. They're good little denners, and they'll also use cavities for their babies. They can live up to 8 years in the wild. 15 months in an urban environment. So basically what that's saying is that in the wild they can live in the rural areas they can live, a decent long life, but in the urban areas, 15 months. It's almost like a cat that goes outside, right? Like as soon as they're in the urban, they've got people going after them, they've got cars, they've got other animals, so lots of challenges. But they are becoming urbanized. So they were able to do it in England, and just depending on what the situation is, they may be able to do it here. I know I saw fox poop in my own backyard this year in Los Angeles. So, oh, there they are. A little cavity of a tree. And then there's the fox hunt. So it's really important to, at least cover some of the history of, how of all foxes, right? And how these guys got here and what they had to deal with, right? In 2004, so actually, we still allow the hunting of foxes using dogs here in the United States. So this talks about what happened in England and in Wales, and how they voted in 2004 and 2005, but the bottom line is they kill a lot of animals, and it's super inhumane, and it's really bad. So it's good to know that. But thankfully, that is not the gray fox. That is the red fox, although it is still a fox, and it is still terrible. Fur, one of the most common farmed fur bearers, the Arctic fox and the red fox. 10 to 20 foxes per coat, 50 million animals die per year in the fur industry. Okay, so unfortunately, ugly side. This is super interesting. You may have heard about this on PBS. They did a special about the fox farm and about they were trying to domesticate foxes, and they were, you know, and in general it takes thousands of years to domesticate an animal, right? Lots and lots of generations and all this selective breeding and all of that, but they were able to get some really calm animals within a few years. And they also were able to get some very, very aggressive animals within the same time. And there were some interesting things that came out of it, even though you can see that the conditions are just, you know, not good. This is an example. On the right, you've got one of the more tame animals, and they even had physical characteristics that were different, like floppy ears and softer fur. And then down in the lower picture, you can see the picture of the one that's very, very aggressive. And he had a different physical look to him, too, which you can't really tell in the picture. But that was one of the things they were studying. And quickly, once again, I cannot discuss these animals without talking about the challenges that they face. And this one is preventable by humans, and it is the use of rodenticide. You know, we can use, if you really need to use something, you can use a snap trap inside a building. There's no need to have any kind of a poison or trap outside where animals are supposed to be living. Because what happens is the animal goes in, gets poisoned, goes outside, does the dance of death. One of these animals takes him, and after they've done that a few times, their defenses get knocked down. Now they're open to the diseases that occur in the wild, the main one being mange. And then this is the result. They get crusty eyes, fur falling out, they can't hunt anymore, and they'll eventually die of starvation. So a lot of times these are the animals people find in the backyard because they're looking for an easy meal because they can't see very well anymore. It's heartbreaking. And how can we coexist with these guys knowing that they could be in our backyard? We keep control of our trash. We make sure we've got good enclosures for our animals, and we use hazing devices to keep them afraid of us whenever possible. And we don't leave food out for anybody, because when you leave it out for one, you're leaving it out for everyone. And if you are someone that needs to feed feral cats, I understand that you probably didn't create the situation yourself and you feel sort of bound by it. My suggestion would be, if you must feed feral cats, put the food out at 6, bring it back in by 7 or 8. They will get used to the schedule, and you don't need to leave that food out all night, because you're just inviting their predators. The coyote will come for the cat food, coyote will come for the cat. And not to mention, this is next to a street. This person is feeding next to a street where these animals are likely to get hit by a car. And then, of course, when you have a few feral cats, you know, inevitably you will have many feral cats. So don't let your situation turn into this. There's bound to be a skunk in there somewhere. And what about your backyard? Fencing. When I look at all these different yards, I see all sorts of stairwells to get over these fences. I see bushes, I see trees, I see lawn furniture. That is what wildlife uses to get over fences. So you could tell me that your fence is 10 or 20 feet high, but I already know that since you didn't clear around it, it doesn't matter how tall it is. On top of that, we do have great horned owls, and depending on how small your pet is, you know, the predator could come from above. Different yards, same situation. And then this slide is the answer to what about my fence? In this one, you can see the coyote on the roof. You can see the bird of prey. You can see the fox climbing down the tree. And my favorite, the tortoise climbing the chain link fence. If the tortoise can climb the chain link fence, then guess what? Yes, wildlife can get over your fence. Unless it looks like this. And this one, the fact that it's cleared on the one side, that absolutely makes it impermeable to wildlife, and that is why it is an ecological nightmare. Again, trash, trash, trash. Containing trash is the #1 way to keep wildlife away from your areas if that's what you want. And really secure it, depending on who you're dealing with. Like if it's a raccoon, really secure the trash. And so you've got enclosures for animals that need to be outside. You're containing your trash. You're leashing your dog. You've got it covered. This is all you need to know about coexisting with these 3 amazing animals. So if you have any questions, I am super happy to answer them. Otherwise, I have had an amazing time with you, and I appreciate your joining us. And I need to figure out how to end this because this is the first time I have streamed using my screen share. So, yeah, I know, right? Okay. Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining me, and if you have any questions, please send us an email. Thank you. End my stream here. Escape. There we go.